Persona 4 Revival has been announced to polarizing reception, be it in regards to the graphics, whether it was even necessary, or why we're getting it before Persona 6. But there's a far more pressing issue that no one seems to be talking about. A highly likely addition that would erode part of Persona 4's identity. New combat outfits for the investigation team. Hello, Daff here. I have multiple reasons why giving P4's cast upgraded looks is detrimental to their story, along with reasons to believe Atlus will probably do it anyway. While I won't be diving into major spoilers, I do recommend you experience Persona 4 yourself before watching the rest of this video. We've already seen Atlus revamp Caesar's looks for Persona 3 Reload, which leaves precedent for Atlus to make this a trend in upcoming remakes. You can argue the trend really started with Persona 5, giving each fan thief a unique metaverse outfit. To be clear, I do love Atlus' style, but just because special outfits will look really cool, doesn't mean they fit Persona 4's vibe. Persona 4's investigation team is arguably the humblest, most laid back of the modern Persona trilogy's casts. While P3's has somewhat professional operation backed by a multinational trading company, and P5's went after some of the highest figures of power in Japan, P4 sticks to a problem relegated to their own small town of Inaba. The stakes of a serial killer loose in a rural community are not as pressing as the larger scale problems of the other games, at least on the surface. But once the player gets attached to P4's characters, the stakes feel high because the killer could put any of your favorites in danger. This attachment's partially owed to the homely vibes of P4 and its setting. The quaintness of the town makes each interaction feel more intimate, and a majority of the cast having simple backgrounds growing up there adds to that intimacy. Once the team forms, they have no flashy equipment or high-caliber gear, just their fog glasses and weapons of choice, making them feel like underdogs against a looming threat. Replacing their school uniforms with cool mission outfits would take away from that vibe that endears so many to the investigation team. Furthermore, bombastic new looks would make the group stand out when they should keep a low profile. With a literal murderer roaming the streets freely, the team should attract as little attention as possible to avoid tempting the killer to strike. If they have obvious costumes distinguishing them from other civilians, it could put them all at risk. But the arguably most important reason Revival should not give the team new outfits is because it risks compromising Persona 4's identity as separate from 3 and 5. There's no logical way to implement new gear without looking like a forced copy. Persona 5's superhero costumes are manifested by the collective unconscious of Mementos, and tailored to the societal perception of each Phantom Thief, which if you want a detailed explanation on, I recommend this video. Persona 3 Reload's combat gear, on the other hand, is covered by the Creature Group's backing of C's. The Phantom Thieves' outfits fit the stylish, flamboyant presentation of the game, while C's reload gear is a sensible addition considering the professional nature of their mission. Plus, its tactical design keeps it from infringing on P3's pre-established identity. But for the investigation team, giving them special TV World costumes would rehash the same concept from 5, and having them fund their own costumes wouldn't make any sense without an outside backer like 3. Yosuke may be well off, but he ain't got Mitsuru levels of money, let's be real. I'm struggling to think of any way for the team to get special outfits without some kind of lore issue, or directly copying the other games. The team can make a bunch of really crummy homemade outfits, but part of the point of giving them new clothes is to make them look cool, not lame or tacky. No matter how you approach it, there's no way to revamp their style without throwing away something that makes Persona 4, Persona 4. And I don't think it's worth sacrificing that just for a fresh new look. But Atlus has plenty of reasons why they might find that sacrifice worthwhile. Obviously, Persona 3 Reload's new outfits were received incredibly well by fans, seen in online discourse, fan art, and even cosplays. I myself absolutely love Reload's combat gear. I think they all look terrific, and more importantly, fit the team's aesthetics without feeling forced into the story. The Creature Group takes the eradication of the Dark Hour seriously, so the idea that they'd provide specialized gear for their field agents is realistic. But Atlus may not internalize that positive reception as being limited to P3. They may think that, because it worked for one remake, they should do it for all remakes, regardless of whether it makes sense. On top of that, having an additional set of main story costumes for a cast of game characters provides more merchandising opportunities. If each of your main characters has 2 significant in-game outfits, you can literally double your sales by selling products for both. Action figures, keychains, stickers, posters, you name it. They sell more while saving money on production because each design barely changes. It's just the same character with different clothes. It'd be foolish, from an economic perspective, to not give P4R the same merchandising opportunities as P3R. Finally, new outfits for P4 would progress the P5ification of Persona, a topic that I think has more nuance than most online discourse acknowledges. Some fans are divided over whether the impact of Persona 5 did more good or bad for the franchise as a whole. In many ways, there's objective good considering how it brought Persona further into the mainstream, and made record sales for Atlus at the time. Since P5's explosive debut, Atlus has continued to grow as a game developer, and their success has given rise to new games like Metaphor ReFantasio, and provided resources to bring back old favorites like Persona 3 and Raito Kuzunoha. But there's room to argue P5's influence has gone too far, seen in spin-offs, and how its presence permeates Atlus's other games. People still debate whether Persona 3 Reload lost too much of its original identity in an attempt to modernize it, or otherwise make it more like P5. I think there's truth in both sides of the argument, but I'm not the right person to determine whether Persona 5's really been that oppressive over Atlus's identity, nor is that this video's focus. My point is, there's plenty of potential for Atlus to push a game too far in a Persona 5 inspired direction, especially a Persona remake, and accidentally making a P5 clone. Yes, Persona 5 was a huge deal for the company, but not every game should be P5. Not every element that worked about P5 will work in a different Persona game. Something I love about Persona is how each game has a unique story with its own unique characters and unique themes. It feels like there's a Persona for everyone. For instance, I gravitate towards Persona 3 because I relate to the cast's struggles and appreciate its message. But I have friends who favor 5 or 4 for the same reasons, even though those games focus on very different characters and themes. That's the beauty of each game having an identity of its own. And if Atlus tries too hard to replicate P5's success, they might end up squandering what made P4 successful to begin with. Let's not forget that P4 was the first to get milked to death. Many people across the world grew to love Inaba and its residents before Atlus had more than one Joker. Sure, Persona 4 didn't blow up like P5 did, but that doesn't mean it needs to become P5 to perform well nowadays. Golden's performance on Steam proves it. Atlus needs to remember, they are remaking Persona 4, not converting it into Persona 5, and allowing the investigation team to retain their school uniforms and fog glasses is a good way to ensure that. I'm unfortunately not confident that Atlus will agree with me. So let's say they do revamp P4's looks. How can they make it work? Perhaps they can take a similar approach to P5 by making the new costumes TV World exclusive. But instead of reflecting the distorted perception of society, they reflect the cast's true inner selves. These costumes can only appear after a party member accepts their shadow, symbolic of how they accepted themselves as a whole, rather than ignoring the parts they loathe. It'd be similar to how each shadow self's boss form transforms into that party member's persona once they accept the shadow as themselves. Maybe upon entering the TV world and before defeating their shadow, each party member can have a demented version of their costume, to represent their obscured view of themselves prior to their growth. While this is the best idea I could come up with, I don't like it for 2 reasons. First off, it feels way too similar to Persona 5's explanation. Even if the symbolism behind each costume is different, the idea still feels like a copy and paste. Secondly, what costume could represent the true self better than their normal looks? The costume philosophy of P5 works because they're based on the distorted views outsiders had about each individual thief, and how they manifested in the collective unconscious. For example, Joker was perceived by society as a dangerous criminal. Therefore, his costume makes him look like a tricky thief, and his red gloves are symbolic of that perceived guilt, representing the blood on his hands. But that criminal identity isn't meant to represent who Joker actually is. Yet for P4 Revival's costumes to perceive the true self, Atlus would have to achieve the exact opposite, which would be leaving the characters' designs alone. At best, Atlus could try accentuating certain characteristics about each member in their new outfits to convey an acceptance of the sum of their parts, but this risks the costumes coming off more as exaggerated caricatures than sincere depictions. No matter how you look at it, nothing will be more true to who these characters are than their original designs. I'm very much in favor of leaving the investigation team's designs alone, but I want to know what you all think. Do you agree with my concerns, or actually want these amateur detectives to get a glow up? What explanation would you prefer if so? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more Persona content like this. I already have a much more positive P4R speculation video you can check out right now. Have a great day everyone. Memento mori.